Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, September 28th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle, and I am joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, want to get your thoughts quickly on the Western Michigan game before we look ahead. Buckeyes win 38-12, of course, moved to 4-0 on the season. Focusing on Cardale Jones, I thought he looked great on the intermediate routes. He was just firing that ball in there, showing why he gave himself the nickname 12 gauge. The deep balls, it was like he was thinking too much, trying to guide it, trying to put too much touch on the ball. Your thoughts overall on Cardale and the way he played and what it means going forward?
Well, he certainly played with more confidence, didn't he? I mean, that part, at least, I don't think anybody can debate was a real big step forward for the Buckeyes, and that Cardale was decisive, wasn't playing like he was looking over his shoulder to see if JT was going to come in after every series. That was something he said after the game even, that it was really nice to not have to worry about being replaced at any point. But I think I agree with you. The intermediate routes, a lot of these ones, he just gunned the ball right in there. I mean, those are some of the throws that the scouts were drooling over. I think he needs to remember that even as big as arm as he has, he needs to step into it and let the guys in the deep balls run underneath him. But I think we've all talked about that ad nauseum since the game ended. Overall, he was more decisive, though. That was the big thing. And there's even a couple times where you could see him consciously making the decision not to try to hit a home run and take what the defense is giving him on some shorter routes. So, yeah, sure, there was a few boneheaded plays, like the 14-yard backward pass on a sack that was coming. But for the most part, this was a positive step forward for Cardale Jones, and I think it's something he can definitely build on.
Buckeyes travel to Indiana this Saturday, 3:30. Usually we call it Ohio Stadium West. It'll be Ohio Stadium West this week as well. The difference is Indiana's actually decent. I don't know if I'll call them good. They haven't really beaten anybody yet, but they are 4-0. They've beaten Southern Illinois, Florida International, Western Kentucky, which is actually a solid team, and then they won at Wake Forest, the worst team in the ACC, but still for Indiana, that's a solid win. You beat a Power 5 conference team on the road. So the Hoosiers are sitting there at 4-0. The biggest newcomer for them is running back Jordan Howard. Indiana benefited from UAB getting rid of their football program because this kid transferred to Indiana. He was eligible immediately. He's an outstanding running back, 6'1", 225 pounds. They have a good quarterback in Nate Sudfeld. The point spread is 18.5. I mean, I obviously think Ohio State's going to win this game, but it is interesting, Bax, that Indiana is not a joke for a change. They actually have their stuff together. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're no question one of the more decent teams that we're going to face this year in the Big Ten, just because they have an offense that can score with anybody. I don't know if people remember a couple years ago, but Indiana was the number 2 offense in the Big Ten, and their defense was just so putrid that it kept them out of a bowl game. Well, their defense right now isn't significantly improved, but it's been good enough in their first 4 games they get stops when they need it. And you talked about Jordan Howard. And this kid is like 700 yards in 4 games on the ground. I mean, like, it's ridiculous how many yards this kid has been racking up. He is an NFL-level tailback for the second straight year under Indiana. And here's the other thing that I don't think anybody's giving them any credit for, but in 3 years under Urban Meyer, Ohio State has played Indiana 3 times, and in 2 of those games, they have been nail-biter, this is entirely too close kind of football games. Obviously, last year it took Jalen Marshall being a superhero to have the Buckeyes win that game. And then 2 years before that was the infamous 52-28 game that turned into 52-39 or 52-49, and then the Buckeyes only won by a field goal at Indiana. This Indiana team is going to score points. There's going to be a few points in this game where we're cussing at our TVs because things aren't going perfectly for the Buckeyes. The good news is that Indiana's defense really is bad. And I think this is the kind of game where if last week was a good, solid game for Cardale Jones, we're hopefully going to see an explosion next week in Bloomington, because this is the type of defense that offenses that are good and talented but slightly struggling get very healthy and very machine-like against. That's for sure.
If you're a Buckeye fan and you are traveling to the game, my advice is this: get there early. And whatever you think early is, get there an hour before that. I mean, that place, there's just 2 roads in and out, and one of them is under construction. We're talking about country roads. There's no interstates into Bloomington. So get there super early or you will be backed up like you wouldn't believe on those country roads. Okay, moving on. This is a topic you're not going to like, Bax, but Michigan seems to be a lot better than expected. They are ranked. They're now 22nd, which means the Big Ten has 5 teams ranked, including the top 2 teams in the country. Ohio State, Michigan State still 1 and 2. Northwestern's 16th. Wisconsin's 19th. Michigan is 22nd. I don't think they're a great team, but you can already see the Harbaugh effect. He has a defensive lineman playing fullback in Henry Pogge, and it's working for him. I mean, he just, and their one loss is at Utah, which has turned out to be a very good team. Are you surprised? Just your thoughts on Michigan being better than expected.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I thought they'd come out of September 2-2. I expected their defense to be better. I didn't expect their defense to have only given up 24 total points in the month of September, though. So that's a little bit above my expectation as well. There's 2 ways to look at this. BYU, on one hand, you could say, wow, BYU is the number 22 team in the country. They nearly beat UCLA, who looks exceptional right now. That's a great win for Michigan, blowing them out of the water. You can look at it on the other hand and say BYU won their first 2 games on Hail Marys that they should not have won. Then they were also exhausted playing after 4 straight weeks of the hardest schedule in September in the country, starting at 10 a.m. local their time. And if there's ever a formula for a team to start slow in college football, it's a West Coast team coming east for a noon game. So there's some extenuating factors. I think Michigan is way more solid than they were last year. They look like the kind of team that'll at least beat the teams talent-wise you expect them to. But watching their offense play, they're still not a dynamic kind of offense. They're still not the kind of offense that strikes me as the type that's going to be able to put up a lot of points against the Michigan State or an Ohio State. I think before the season I thought 7-5 with this team. I maybe could see 8-4 at this point now because of the way that they're playing. I think that we're not going to really know about them, though, for a while because they have Maryland next week, who stinks. It's a matter of time until Randy Edsall gets fired at this point because that team is terrible. Then they're off before they play Northwestern. And by then, let's be real. We know Northwestern has a defense. We also know Northwestern has trouble scoring points on anyone. And while it's fantastic that they're ranked and that win over Stanford is certainly a bragging point for the Big Ten, we don't know if Northwestern's in the middle of their traditional good start that turns into a 7-5 kind of season as well. So I don't know if we're going to know much about the boys in blue until they play against Michigan State in mid-October. That's when we'll start to get answers on them. But I don't think anybody can argue at this point that they're at least a respectable football team. The clown show of the Brady Hoke era, at least, is over. But whether or not that really makes them one of the 25 best teams in the country or a team that's going to challenge a division title, I think that's probably a step too far. Not to mention that Harbaugh inherited a lot of veteran defensive talent. So it's a good start. I'm watching interestedly. Let's put it that way. It's going to be very fascinating to see how they turn out. But I don't think we can read too much into a win over BYU that certainly had some stuff going on here. They're a better team. I think that's the best way to put it, but there's no way that we can really tell how much better yet.
Fantastic insights, as usual, out of the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Real quick, I want to let the listeners know, big day team coverage-wise on the site at Bucknuts, we will interview Urban Meyer today at 11:45 a.m., so look for a video and a story on what Coach Meyer has to say. Following that, around noon to 12:30, we will interview Kerry Combs and Tim Hinton. Then we're going to interview several players from 1 to 2 o'clock. So look for stories, bolts, and videos on what the assistant coaches say and the players, in addition to what we get from Coach Urban Meyer. We're going to have an update on Johnny Dixon in the boarding house today, so make sure you check that out. People that are wondering about Johnny Dixon, we will have the information for you in today's boarding house, so make sure you check that out. Thanks again to the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell, and thanks to you for tuning into the show. I appreciate it and hope you have a great day. Take it away, best damn band in the land.